So thank you so much everyone for joining this event. This will be to introduce the 2026 ninth annual SDG Teach In, SDG meaning Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Oliver, and I've been delivering this campaign for the past 2 years now at the charity SOS UK. I currently work as a project manager, focusing on embedding, supporting staff and students in schools and colleges across the UK and internationally to embed sustainability and climate justice into their education. And yeah, it's a really privileging and fulfilling role. Whilst I deliver the session, feel free to really put in the chat just to introduce yourselves, where you're coming from, maybe what you teach or what your role is. And yeah, it would just be really nice to hear who else is in our shared cyberspace. So just some brief housekeeping. So as mentioned, this webinar will be recorded and is being recorded, and the recording will be shared afterwards. Please do also, if you have any questions that you think of, you can add those to the Q&A. It should be at the top of your screen, or if you're on your phone, it will be in the options tab. If there will be time at the end for a Q&A question and answer session. And if you do wish to speak, then we'll give you that option to unmute yourself and speak on your microphone. And as usual, please do remember to be kind and respectful to everyone and their opinions. So just really briefly, for the agenda, we'll be introducing a little bit about who is SOS UK. We'll then talk about an overview of the teach-in, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the impacts of this campaign to date. We'll then get into how learners and educators can be involved with this campaign, as well as further support available as well. So just to briefly introduce Students Organising for Sustainability UK, we're an educational charity that was formed in 2019 by the students' movement. And a key part of what we do is delivering a variety of projects, programs, and campaigns, all designed to ensure that students of all ages can be the change that they want to see in the world. We do this by equipping them with a variety of green skills and knowledge and working with the institutions to support them on this journey. Another really key part of what we do as well is ensuring that the field of sustainability and education is as inclusive as possible, and not just through performative tokenistic tick box exercises. So just to briefly give an overview of the SDG Teach-In. So this is an annual campaign we've been delivering since 2018. And the key premise of it is to not only encourage, but also support educators around the world to integrate the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals into their teaching, learning, or assessments. Some key aims include not only getting started with the SDGs, for those that are unfamiliar, but also actually going further to embed sustainability in education and wider topics that is not included in the SDG framework. It's also really about trying to equip and generate momentum and maintain that momentum on equipping the next generation of leaders and change makers with the necessary green skills, values, and knowledge that they need to really be the change they want to see in the world. And also, it's a really nice chance for you lots on the call and for those listening to the recording to share and inspire others with how you're already maybe embedding sustainability in what you do, as well as sharing case studies or resources of how to support other institutions on this really big and long-term, lifelong journey. We also delivered this campaign and many of the other work streams across the charity because we know from over about 15 years worth of research that students are constantly demanding for sustainability to be embedded into their education systems. Last year, we surveyed around almost 10,000 students in the UK in further and higher education. And of those 10,000 students, we found that around almost 60% say they want to learn more about sustainability in general. Almost 90% agree that their place of study should teach skills and knowledge that positively impacts society and the environment. And that almost 80% of students would like to see sustainability embedded in all courses. So it's not enough just to have sustainability included in typical green subjects like geography or the sciences. We need all subjects to get involved because the challenges we face in the world can't be solved by one group of people alone. If that was the case, we wouldn't be in this webinar today. So just to give a brief overview of the Sustainable Development Goals, as you might have guessed from the title of this campaign, this is like a key sort of framework to this campaign, but it's also not the only framework that we use. But just to give a quick introduction to this concept, so sustainable development is often defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I would also say that this future generation should also include not only people, but also other animals, plants, and ecosystems. And yeah, this definition typically is often a reference to the Our Common Future reports back in 1987. And so these are the goals. These are the 17 SDGs that were agreed upon by all United Nations member states back in 2015. And they ultimately set this an agenda for 2030 to achieve all of these goals. And there are many, many hundreds of targets that span across social, environmental, and economic challenges. Many of these goals, as you can tell, they intersect different topics. It's not just about ecology and climate action, but also it spans multiple social and cultural and economic areas. And so you might be wondering, like, why do we select like the SDGs as one of the frameworks for teaching? Well, some of the reasons include because we know that they're a really useful tool to highlight like the interconnections between different social, environmental, and economic challenges. This graphic on the right-hand side is known as the SDG wedding cake, and it really helps illustrate the different like categories of these goals, as well as how fundamental partnerships and collaboration is, which is why that goal is shown as like the golden thread that unites every single goal. None of those goals can be achieved without some form of cooperation within and beyond our many silos. The SDGs also have a really wide international recognition, and there's a very like common shared language in different sectors and countries. They're also a really useful like conversation starter for those that are either like new or new to like this field of sustainability, as well as conversation starter for different professions and subjects because of their breadth. However, despite this, despite their many strengths as an educational tool, we think it's also really fundamental to engage with and critically engage with the limitations of this SDG framework. So some of the contradictions, but there are many contradictions between the goals. Some notable ones include, for example, goal number 13, climate action, with goal number 8, good jobs and economic growth. We know that to radically change our social, economic, and political systems and to mitigate and adapt to climate change, that will require radical change. And it comes into quite a lot of stark contrast and tension with other goals that pretty much call for infinite growth on a finite planet. There's also this question of, what are we sustaining? What systems are we sustaining? What relationships with people and other beings on the planet are we sustaining? These goals they're not really that radical enough in highlighting like the many quite extreme inequalities that we see around the world. And then for me, I think also perhaps the most greatest limitation to these SDGs is that they fail to address the root causes and underlying drivers of our many, many social, economic, and environmental crises. So there is no like sustainable transition without addressing these like underlying systems of oppression, all the way from capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy, speciesism, and the many animal, and genocides we see around the world, without addressing like these really root causes, as well as providing transformative alternatives. And so we hope for the teaching that educators and learners will be able to will not only engage with the SDGs, because we know how valuable they are, but also going beyond the SDGs as well by embracing other related topics or approaches to learning. So for example, things like ecological and climate justice, to name just a few. And just to really emphasize, like even if we achieved all of these sustainable development goals, we would still have these very issues that are key drivers of the many forms of injustice we see around the world. And so educators, facilitators, and workplace providers have a really big role to play in this, in not only transforming our education for the better, but also empowering the future generations to really lead the change and progress towards a more healthier and happier future. So I'm now going to just share a little bit about I guess, some more wider context of the teaching and its impact to date. So last year, when we ran the teaching, we reached around 17 countries across 5 continents. And since 2018, since the teaching first ever commenced, we've reached almost or over 500,000 students across 50 countries worldwide. In 2025, over 1,000 educators pledged to incorporate the SDGs into their teaching and learning. This spanned almost 100 institutions that took part. So that includes schools, colleges, universities, as well as student unions and training providers. And it also reached around 120,000 or so learners through lessons, workshops, events, and so on. Every year we track the most popular goals that educators engage with the teaching, and these were the top 3 goals that we came across from last year. So good health and well-being was a top 1, followed by responsible consumption and production, and then climate action. And then also we can also see how actually the least covered goals from last year were mostly around water, no poverty, and hunger. And so perhaps for you lot listening on the call today, these might be areas that might be what you also want to focus on more into the future too. In terms of which kind of specific education providers have engaged, so often there's been almost an even split between higher education and further education, colleges and sixth forms. It's been really nice to see a big increase in college engagements with the teaching in the past couple of years, and that's something we really want to continue going on in the future. And as you can see, we also have some engagement as well from early years, as well as adult and community-based education as well. These were the leaderboards from 2025. So every year we publish these 2 leaderboards throughout the Teach In March campaign period. One of them focuses on the top 10 institutions in terms of number of educators who have signed up, but in proportion for this year, we'll be doing it in proportion to the size of institutions. And then the other leaderboard is around the top 10 institutions in terms of number of learners reached. So when you sign up on the online form, which I'll share a bit later, you have this option to put the approximate learners reached through your teaching and learning by taking part in the teach-in. I also just want to quickly tease that we will have a special prize for institutions who land a spot on either of these leaderboards for this year, and I'll share more about that later, but just a nice little sneak peek into that. So I'm now just going to give some insights into some previous ways that institutions took part, just to help you understand maybe how you might want to be involved. I should also say that there is no blueprint or prescribed way for you to engage with the teach-in, and that's by design, because you know how institutions and communities around the world vary so much. The teach-in is your opportunity to tailor it as needed to your own contexts, and that can create some really interesting and unique and creative approaches to how you embed sustainability into education. But just to start off with Gateshead College, so this was they took part in just last year, and they took a really nice cross-institutional approach using really interactive ways to engage students and staff on sustainability. So all the way from donation drives to fashion shows, as well as swap shops, so clothes swapping. They also were able to embed several different SDGs as well as topics beyond the SDGs into their learning. So things like active travel, digital poverty, as well as food waste and global citizenship. Another example is from the University of the West Indies. This is a really unique example of an institution who has developed a really bespoke way of generating momentum and awareness of the teach-in and beyond within several island campuses. This was the first time that the University of the West Indies took part in the teach-in, and they clearly made their mark. They reached around 4,600 students across around 4 international campuses. They used a variety of ways to engage students and staff on the teach-in, including bespoke workshops that were delivered by us at SOS UK to support staff with how they might go about weaving sustainability tailored to different types of subjects. And it's just a really good example of how you can leverage the teaching to align strategically with wider priorities of your institutions. And in the UWE's case, this is around embedding education for sustainable development across its campuses and curricula. This was a really nice quote from Celia Davison-Francis, the former UWE Director of Alumni Relations and one UWE Responsible Futures program, who played I can't really understate it, but a fantastic role in this teaching and beyond. And they described how, the shift in educators' mindsets around sustainability integration has been remarkable, particularly within business, the arts and social sciences, and it's as if a collective light has been switched on. And so that's just a really nice, it can speak better to the achievements that the UWE had with the teaching. Some other examples as well include from Edge Hill University, again from last year. They took a really nice, I think, quite embodied approach to learning, using interdisciplinary and creative approaches to engaging students on really sensitive but also really important topics like gender equality, race and ethnicity. And it's a good example as well of, again, making the most of the teaching to not just engage students on sustainability, but actually to embed and establish plans across the institution to expand these kinds of approaches into the future. And then finally, just some further examples. These are just a snapshot. I mean, there are loads of great examples, but unfortunately I have a time limit. But just some more examples include, for example, from the University of Salford and their fantastic environmental justice module. This is very much a student-centered module where students can engage with problem-based learning, as well as collaborating with the university sustainability team and the Sustainable Housing and Urban Studies units on living lab type projects, and engaging with topics all the way from food policy, housing and climate activism. We've also seen from the University of Exeter back in 2023, another interesting unit on using mathematical modelling to look into topics on green energy and infectious diseases, as well as from West Lothian College, where they've taken part from across multiple years, including using nature-based learning and really practical craft-based woodwork activities for students and pupils. And then also from the British School of Brussels, and as you can see in that little picture in the bottom right corner, some really creative ways to encourage students to map the linkages between different goals. And in this case as well, learning about the challenges of living off-grid, as well as wider sustainability issues around renewable energy. And so just one of many quotes that we get from students when we survey them who took part in the teaching. This student, an undergraduate history and philosophy student, they say how, the teaching placed my course into perspective of a much wider context. It's interdisciplinary and has a role in securing our future. And so this is also a really nice quote as well that speaks to the potential for you to for students to gain systems thinking and critical reflection on their own learning for future literacy as well. So in terms of how you can get involved with the SDG Teach In 2026, so as mentioned, the teach-in this year, and as with most previous years, will be lasting from the 1st to the 31st of March. I should say that although that is the main sort of campaign period, that doesn't mean you can still, how you implement your actions to take part can be both before, during, and a bit after this period as well. In terms of who can take part, so pretty much anyone in a teaching or educational or facilitation capacity, and as well as if you're based in, for example, early years, primary, secondary, further higher education, or also adult and community-based education, or similar around the world. In terms of the structure, so we've got these optional weekly themes to help you sort of break down the diverse field of sustainability. These are optional, you don't have to follow them, but if you're finding it difficult to sort of address what can be quite an overwhelming topic, this could be a useful way of doing that. So in the first week, we'll be focusing on environmental sustainability, followed by social and then economic. And then the final week, the theme on care, collaboration, and creativity. And note on that fourth week, the reason why we've chosen that values-led approach is because you know how important these kind of values and perspectives are to sustainability. And also as an eco-poet and Chinese calligrapher myself, I've witnessed firsthand the various like powers of the creative arts in what can be quite an overwhelming topic and issue, not only for like communicating about social and environmental injustice, but also igniting a sense of like radical hope, possibility, and a form of healing or therapy. And for me, at least, those are all really key ingredients for transformative learning and change making. But again, like feel free to like mix and match these weeks. There's no need to stick rigidly to them as well. And each week, reminder emails will be sent by me to those that have signed up and have consented to receive those emails to take part, as well as advice and like recommended resources from our Teach In resource bank, which I'll talk about in a second. So in terms of like practically how educators can take part, apart from completing the online form, which basically includes a little bit of information about yourself and how you plan to take part, what SDGs you'll be engaging with, and any other topics that fall outside that framework that you will be looking into as well. You can also help actually promote the teaching within your institutions to your fellow colleagues and wider networks. We have like a external communications pack on our website. And that includes like ready-made social media graphics and posts, email templates aimed at students and educators, email signatures, graphics to say that you've signed up to the teaching and things like that. So yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible to help promote the teaching. But as usual, you're welcome to like tailor those resources as well to fit your own context too. And of course, do feel free to like share your stories with how you're taking part in the teaching by using the hashtag SDG Teach In. And also you're welcome to tag SOS UK on social media. You're also welcome to email us at the shared mailbox on how you're taking part using our like case study template. And this would help inform like our impact reporting, as well as potentially being added, like showcased on the resource bank as well, if there's any recommended things you want to share with everyone else. Just some examples of how you might want to go about weaving sustainability into education. Of course, there are infinite topics that you can include, but it's also important to look at how the learning environments of students and staff. And so these are just some examples of how you can go about that, just to give some inspiration. So this could involve, for example, co-creating or co-delivering content with students. It could also you could also entail things like debates or organizing like role play and discussions. We know from research and general programs we deliver with students that they really like and benefit from tangible project-based learning. And so that can be really valuable as well for developing other employability skills. You're also welcome to be like experimental. Like there are various creative approaches to education that are emerging and have emerged over time. For example, spanning things like zines and poetry and film. Even if your discipline or subject may not be a sort of like typical creative discipline, that doesn't mean you can't experiment with other ways of teaching and learning that you never know might have a really big impact on students, positive impacts on students. And of course, yeah, but there's many other ways as well, including embedding sustainability into like existing professional development sessions for staff, as well as like wider strategies, quality processes, and the stuff that makes the infrastructure of our education and has a lot of power as well. And so, yeah, as mentioned, there's this online resource bank. This resource bank is on the website and it's available throughout the year. It's basically your go-to source of recommended and quality assured materials from us that we've come across through the work we do. And it's tailored to like different levels and subjects. So it covers things like both social, economic, and environmental sustainability resources, as well as wider readings and materials that might be useful for inspiring or informing how you engage with the teaching. And again, if you do have any recommended resources that you think we should add, then please do get in touch. I also want to highlight that we have two upcoming online workshops specifically for further education institutions. These have been organised in collaboration with Navigate, an online like further education support platform. And these workshops will specifically, one of them is on the 24th of February, and it will look at advice for engaging staff and students in the teach-in, as well as more broadly around how you might go about weaving sustainability into the curriculum. And then the second workshop on the 28th of April will be on a similar topic, and again, looking at how you might go about embedding sustainability into existing curricula, and the different ways of you can go about doing that in your own context. All of these links and the information in these slides, of course, will be shared afterwards and will be uploaded to the website as well. So no need to like write everything down. It's also really important to say that learners themselves can have a really active role to play in how they take part or get their institutions to take part in the teaching. Very much all about like listening to their voices, sharing like why they want their place of study to be involved and how, if there's any ideas that they have, maybe outdoor learning or co-creation, creating artwork, things like that. Also leadership. So this is a really great chance for students to like play an active role in their education, and be equipped with different green skills and knowledge. And they're also, just like staff, they're welcome to use the ready-made communications that we have in that online communications pack. And also they're welcome to like almost like test their own graphic design skills, see if they can sort of like promote and garner awareness on the teaching and how they want their institutions and fellow classmates and teachers to be involved as well. We also wanted to share ways that we can support you for going further, so that embedding sustainability into education isn't just a one-off thing every year, but actually it's done throughout the year. And so this leads me on to this topic of like education for sustainable development and how we can embed that throughout our education systems all year round. Crucially, at its heart, ESD is all about fostering a transformative learning environment, so that all learners are equipped with like the knowledge, skills, and values that they need to address the various challenges we see around the world, both in their careers, personal and professional lives. And so SOS UK runs a massive variety of projects, campaigns, and programs, and as well as consultancy work to support different institutions with education for sustainability. Just to highlight a couple, so Responsible Futures is one of our flagship programs that's been running for the past 10 years. This is a program which has like long-term support to foster a whole institution approach to integrating ESD in not only the formal curriculum, but also extracurricular activities, the wider campus, policies, strategies, and careers. To date, we've engaged around over 50 different colleges and universities worldwide, and it also serves as a really invaluable peer support learning network to learn from other institutions and the fantastic work that they're doing in this space. And crucially, it's all about partnering students with the institutions. So much of the ways that you can achieve this accreditation is by being scored by students on different criteria. And a student-led audit helps determine whether or not your institution gains or retains the Responsible Futures accreditation. Another example is Teach the Future. So this is a really inspiring example of a student-led campaign by school students to improve education on the climate and ecological crisis in the UK. They lead a variety of different like projects within this campaign, all the way from like reforming educational policy to campaigning for decarbonisation, as well as government investments in just creating safe school infrastructure and more. And we also have the Learning Academy, which is our like hub of bespoke and workshops designed to like progress sustainability into your own institutions. It covers a variety of like different topics, so all the way from carbon literacy training to well-being, to workshops on decolonizing, decarbonising, and democratizing education, as well as alcohol awareness training and training on ESD for course reps and students' unions and more. So if you have any questions or queries, or you'd like to be involved with any of these, then feel free to get in touch at hello@sos-uk.org. And again, all of this information is also available on our website. Something that I really wanted to spotlight for the teaching especially is our program on student-led curriculum mapping. So we can basically support colleges and universities to empower their students to map their own learning and to see how far the SDGs and green skills are embedded in their syllabi and other learning activities. And so we've developed this program and its methodologies in partnership with students from the University of Winchester and University of Liverpool. And there are many benefits to having a student-led curriculum mapping approach, some of which include establishing a baseline to monitor your progress over time in embedding sustainability in the curriculum, also identifying unknown pockets of good practice. This is a really good place to uncover like what's happening already in your institutions that may not be on the radar. And again, the Teach In is another way to spotlight that as well. It's also a fantastic way to boost the employability of students involved. There's many skills that they can develop through this process. And of course, they're just sort of fostering a wider institution engagement on the SDGs and how you can link it to broader commitments, policies and strategies. Something that we really wanted to highlight for the first time ever for the Teach In is that for those that land land a spot on either of the Teach In leaderboards this year, so number of educators pledged or number of students reached, those institutions will gain the opportunity to do a student-led curriculum mapping at a discounted fee. So for example, you would be able to like select a group of students to attend an online training, shared training. They would be able to map their curricula together, and then institutions would be able to receive their raw and cleaned up data at a discounted fee to just acknowledge your leadership in this space. This is the first time we're offering this, and more details will certainly be released soon. But I just want to highlight it for you lot who have joined this webinar today that this is coming. So yeah, you look forward to that. Something I always wanted to share as well, that when we do these student-led curriculum activities, they're really fulfilling. The best bit for me is just listening to the stories, the on-the-ground stories from students themselves about how they already or want to engage with sustainability. And this is a quote we often get from students who learn how that teaching has a larger purpose than just exams and assignments. And so that's exactly what one of the things we aim to see as well. And so there's also other ways as well that you can, within your institutions, continue to transform education for all. And again, the embedding sustainability in things you do it shouldn't just be reserved for one point in the year. It should be embedded throughout everything so everyone can live and breathe sustainability. Green impact, some of you might be aware of this or to be taking part in it in the past or this year. This is one of our other flagship award-winning UNESCO programs, which basically transforms organizations in different sectors to ensure that everyone, staff and students, can take meaningful action on social and environmental sustainability. The different sectors includes not just universities and colleges, but also public sector, health, students' unions, councils and business. And this is delivered to not only UK institutions, but also on an international scale as well. We also have the hedgehog-friendly campus. And this is a really lovely example of ways to nurture not only hog-friendly campuses on schools, colleges and universities, but also actually bringing in that nature-connected learning and supporting the flourishing of other non-human animals who also share this planet with us. And by taking part in this program, institutions can be accredited with awards, can achieve awards accredited by the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. Also, we have Green Campus Revolution. So this is focusing more around accommodation and halls of residences. So this is where we upskill and mobilize students on energy, waste and water reduction so that they can take a meaningful action on these activities in their accommodation. All of these programs involve student-led audits. So it's not just an external random body auditing progress in these issues, but actually it's students themselves taking a leadership role to ensure that their institutions remain accountable to progressing sustainability throughout education. And then finally, one of the other many programs that we deliver includes Fair Trade Universities. And this is basically includes the Fair Trade University Award, which is delivered in partnership with the Fair Trade Foundation. And ultimately, this recognizes universities that are committed to promoting ethical trade beyond just simply stocking fair trade products on campus. And there's different benefits of being a fair trade university. One of them is to literally respond to that student demand we know about for students who are keen to buy more products from people who were paid fairly, as well as those that think that their university should have like some form of fair trade policy. That came from a survey of 1,000 students back in 2025. It's also a great way to demonstrate your leadership in ethical trade and sustainability and set like an example in the higher education sector. And then, of course, as with the other programs, empowering students to audit your university's progress, as well as learn from the wider cohorts of fair trade universities. Something to really emphasize with this program as well is that fair trade does impact all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Me and my colleague Swafer, we actually wrote a blog article about this last year, which you can access via the external communications pack, just to highlight the different like linkages between all of the SDGs with fair trade. And I also wanted to highlight as well that by taking part in the teach-in, that can also support various awarding criteria of this program. So you can think about it like two birds, one stone. They're very complementary to each other. And again, if you have any questions about this program or you want to be involved, then you can contact the email on the screen. But again, these slides will be shared and uploaded to the website afterwards as well. So that mostly concludes the webinar for now. I wondered it would be great to open up the floor to any questions if anyone had any. I can see the chat has gone wild, which is great to see. So yes, 1 second. Great, so just got a question from someone in the Q&A, and feel free as well, yeah, if you have any questions about programs discussed or how you want to get involved with teaching, feel free to put those in. So we have a question about if we are coordinating the SDG teaching for our organization, are we able to request a list of everyone who has pledged? It was difficult last year to target support where we had few pledges if they hadn't clicked the button to say you could share the pledge details. Yeah. And can it be right? Yeah. So we, in response to that question, as with the previous years, we have to, for data protection, we have to ensure that educators who pledge to take part have that option to agree or like to consent or not if they wish their details to be shared. We can share like anonymously like how many educators have pledged or signed up overall, but we won't be able to share like specific details of who those are unless they consent to that information. However, if you do want any further like guidance on how you might go about with just finding out who has taken part, feel free to get in touch. But we'll have to say that we do need consent from people to share their data. So yeah. Are there any other questions? And feel free if there's any questions you want to say verbally, I can give you that permission to unmute yourself as well.